angels willing to hold us in their arms. When our worth of stone or ashes, and we both passed on. Let forever mean forever and carry on.
Good afternoon. Well, got an interesting subject to talk about today. One that I don't think is really talked about enough. And it's simply what makes someone a prepper. Pretty important thing to talk about. It truly is, because I think there's a lot of people out there that just really don't get it. And it's important. It's an important thing to get, because from what I'm seeing that a lot of people are going to fail simply because they think that their gadgets, their toys, their supplies, whatever things they have is going to be all they need to be able to survive. And that's simply not the case. Simply not the case. So anyway, let me get through the normal stuff real quick, and then we'll go from there. First off, for those that may not know, tonight we will not be switching over and rebroadcasting Prepper Nurse 1, just so everybody knows. 7 p.m. our time, those that choose to go over there, that's fine. That's fine. It is what it is. I'm not going to think two seconds about it. But I also ain't going to think 2 seconds about restreaming his broadcast anymore. So it is what it is. But okay, let me run through the normal stuff real quick, and then we'll kind of get into this topic and talk about it. Let's see. Amazon affiliate. We are at $15.54. So thank you to all of those that participate in our affiliate program. For those that don't know, we have a link in the description, as well as at thewatchmannews.com at the top right there. Essentially, you click that link, it takes you to Amazon. If you make a purchase, the item doesn't cost you anything more, but it throws a little bit our way. So we also got a Teespring store. Best way to find the different things that we offer there is go to thewatchmannews.com and just scroll down on the home page. Right now, we've got 4 different designs. Hopefully, here real soon, I'll have a chance to be able to get some more designs up there. I've got 50 decals left to do, and then that order is done. So hopefully within the next maybe week or two, I'll come up with something. Again, I don't force it, because anytime I force something like that, I wind up completely not happy with what I come up with. So I have been thinking. I've got a few ideas, and but anyway, if you're interested in, there's t-shirts, there's coffee mugs, tote bags, you name it, phone cases, all kinds of stuff with each of these different designs. So just click a link, it'll take you over to Teespring, and you'll see all the different items available. So the other way, if you want to help out, at thewatchmannews.com, we do have a donate link. That's also in the description of the videos, as well as the home page right there in the main menu. That just takes you to our PayPal donation page. So basically, it's you don't have to have a PayPal account. You can do it as a guest using a debit or a credit card. But I always let people know it does say Transforming Disabilities up top. That is us. But it will also say Purpose the Watchman News donation. That way you know you're in the right place. So anyway, and we got a lot of projects coming, folks. These decals have kept me busy. They have really kept me busy. Now that I have an action camera, I can really get busy and do some of the review videos that would be a bit hard to do without having the use of both hands and being able to mount a camera to my body, as well as some of the how-to videos, because I haven't forgot about those. I haven't forgot about the how-to on the teardown of the lantern and the cook stove and all of that stuff. Have not forgot about it. I just needed a way to be able to have a camera that I could mount basically to my head so that you see what I see. So, yeah, some things I can do with a camera on a tripod, like the how how-to videos on the teardowns of the stove and the lantern, but it is better off that I have both cameras available. That way, maybe one gets something that the other one don't or whatever, and I've got two options to switch from. So you're going to see a lot of videos from here on out when I do reviews and stuff. You're going to see multiple camera views. That's the whole idea. So I'm looking very forward to that. I just have to have time to do it. So again, lots of projects. I've got the Grow 10 project. I've got all kinds of projects to do. And there's a lot of updates on that alone. So including the addition of another light and all kinds of other goodies. So bear with me. It's coming. So let's get on to topic here. What makes someone a prepper? Well, there's a lot of people that are under the impression that they can go out and buy some cool gear. They can buy some food and store some food, and they're a prepper. I would beg to differ. I would argue that point to no end. Because let me tell you something. In my lifetime, there is all kinds of neat and cool gadgets that I've gotten that didn't work as advertised or broke in a short period of time. Those items, in most cases, I continued to use because I repaired them myself. That's important. Having those type of skills, especially the skills to repair things, is immensely important. Immensely. I couldn't tell you how important that is. And there's a lot of different things out there to know how to repair, whether it's electrical, whether it's electronics, whether it's mechanical. There's a lot of different things to know. And I would highly recommend, if you're not a mechanically or electrically inclined person, that you start learning now, like right now. I've talked about it before, and I don't know if I ever showed any examples. Let me put this in. Electronic training kit. I'm just Googling it. That's all I'm doing. And you will see, I mean, you don't need some $3,000 kit. If you can do it, go for it. But you don't need all that. You can start out with some pretty basic stuff, right? They're not free. I'll tell you that. They're not free. But, again, what means more to you? Your life or what? This is like a little snap kit here. And it's just essentially, you just snap the pieces together and all of that. It basically gives you a general idea of what the different components do in electronics. It's important stuff. Now, you're not going to be able to use a kit like this and be able to repair, say, something like a tablet or a smartphone or a motherboard or something like that. And the reason why, two different animals. Okay, your cell phone or your tablet or your motherboard on your computer, they use something called surface mount technology. Okay, that is a whole nother ball of wax. And surface mount, for the most part, I'm going to say it's not the most possible to repair. Now, in some cases, if you've got a blown capacitor or something like that, or if you can particularly identify a blown diode or a resistor or something like that, then sure, most certainly, you could pull it off the board, you could replace it with a new one. Not a problem. But there are a lot of pieces on that board, and being able to identify, first off, the parts that are bad is going to be extremely hard to do. And then replacing it, you're not going to replace it with a soldering iron, okay, which is what most people are familiar with when they do this kind of work. You have to have a different type of tool and different types of solders and pastes and all of that stuff when you do surface mount boards. However, this will give you a basis of what you need to know. And if you learn and understand the theory behind basic electrical and basic analog electronics even, okay, you will have a good understanding of how to be able to design circuits that will come in handy. You know, there are a lot of things that at one time people thought was really cool, right? The latest technology, touch lamps being one of them. The touch lamp is such an easy circuit. Such an easy circuit. I can remember when touch lamps became a thing, and they were pretty expensive. They were pretty expensive. And when you understand what goes into a touch lamp circuit, you're like, why? Because there's virtually little of nothing that goes into that circuit to be able to create that touch lamp. So, again, these are all things that are handy. Learning how to build, say, motion sensors would be a good idea. And again, this is just one subject. This is just electronics, and electrical kind of goes with it, but this is just one subject. Then you've got mechanical things, right? If you've never had an erector set, I would highly suggest you get one. If you're not a mechanically inclined person, right? Or if you're somebody that hasn't worked with their hands a lot, worked with tools a lot, I definitely recommend getting an erector set. Seriously. Even if you're a grown adult, if you're not used to doing that type of stuff, get an erector set, okay? Because that will help teach you teach you a little bit more about how to use your hands, how to use tools, how to build something. When you build something, what are its weaknesses? What are its strengths? Okay? And if you're starting out, there's no shame in that. You know what there's shame in? Not doing it. That's what there's shame in. Watching everything fall apart, right? Watching everybody around you waste away and fall away because you don't have the knowledge to be able to do anything about it. That's shame. That's shame. We've got time right now. We've got time and we've got ability, right? Right here is just one of many kits. You can go and there's kit after kit, and they do have them cheaper than this. They're going to be smaller. They're going to be comprised a little differently, but they have all kinds of kits, right? All kinds, from cheap to expensive. Here's a learning how to solder training kit. Probably a good kit to have. Learning how to solder is important. Now, this is the kits like this that I used to have as a child. Right here. Yeah, why a lot of people were playing with whatever the hell they were playing with as a child. This is what I was playing with. This is what I was playing with. This is what I found interesting and exciting, right? And they've got a 50-in-1 here and a 131 kit. Okay, and again, it will help teach you the basics of electronics and components and what they do. So, immensely important. Electronics, I think, is going to play a pretty important role when it comes to SHTF. I truly do. Especially if you've already incorporated some electronics in your stuff. Take solar panels, for instance, okay? If there would be an EMP, the diodes in the solar panels are likely not going to survive, okay? So being able to replace those diodes is an important skill. But here's something you may or may not know. Diodes are like a one-way street, okay? The idea, the theory behind a diode is it will let the flow of electricity go one way, but not the other, okay? So a diode is what they call polarized, meaning it has, a certain direction that it has to go. And if you put those diodes in backwards, guess what? It's not going to work. So it's important to know that. It's important to know how to identify which way the diode goes. There's a band on the diode that you look at, and that tells you which direction that you need to put the diode. Okay? LEDs are the same way. They are polarized. They've got a positive leg and a negative leg, and if you hook them up backwards, they're not going to work, right? Transistors are important. Okay, so you got to understand how a transistor functions. You have to understand which legs are what. You've got the base, the emitter, and the base, emitter, and collector. And it's important to know that. It's important to know which ones are which. Okay? All this stuff, believe it or not, is easier than you would imagine to understand. But by messing around with a little kit like this, will give you a good basic idea of those different components. Now, let me blow this picture up. I'm just curious. There's a transformer, digital display, control, batteries, diodes. Like I was telling you about the diodes having a band on them. Switch, I'm looking for a transistor. Capacitors, more capacitors, transistors. There we go. So, and there you go. 3 different, you've got 2 PNPs and 1 NPN, okay? And the difference in those is how the legs are configured, how it works, essentially. So, and like I was saying, you have a base, emitter and collector. 3 legs on those particular types of transistors. So, very important stuff. Important to know how to read that. That symbol, I can't kind of go off of it or else it'll disappear. But the symbol there that you see to the left of the transistors, it's important to know what that means. It's important to be able to identify that symbol, and it's important to be able to identify what that means. Those lines, those arrows, and all of that are important. So, but a kit like this, you know, is great to be able to get your wings wet, so to speak, when it comes to how to do basic electronics. And it's $42 plus $4.33 tax and $7 shipping, right? Not too bad. Not too bad. So, and it'll have a book with it that will teach you how to build all kinds of circuits and all of that. And hopefully the book tells you, it tells you the basic principles of physics and teaches about magnetism and all of that. Important stuff, okay? And I know this is kind of we've gotten a bit of a distance away from what I was talking about, but it's important. It's important. And you can just go and Google it, Amazon it, whatever. You'll find a ton of these kits. I actually like that one I was showing you. This one right here. That looks like it's a pretty solid little kit for a relatively decent price. And then you can go from there, you know, learning skills like Arduino. I've always wanted to get into Arduino, but I just never have. Important stuff. Here's a 301 kit for $99.50. So check it out. Consider it. Think about it. It's important to know how to do those things. I don't have a lot of good advice for you when it comes to learning mechanical, other than get out there and work on your own car instead of taking it to the shop, right? Get yourself a good Chilton's manual or whatever, and understand there's a big learning curve, okay? Don't get out there and try to rebuild the engine if you've never done that kind of work, but definitely learn how to change brakes, learn how to change belts and hoses and all of that stuff. But I would highly suggest that you find somebody that, if you can, that knows what they're doing. Preferably to watch over what you're doing, but at least to check over your job after you're done. Okay, I don't want anybody to get out there and get stranded or something like that because they didn't tighten a bolt back or something like that. But the only way that you're going to learn these skills is to do them. The only way, right? It's disheartening when I see so many preppers that don't even know how to work on their own vehicle, don't, know very little on how to repair anything. Folks, what makes someone a prepper? It's not just buying the things. It's much more than that. You know, we don't discuss firearms and stuff like that here because we don't have any, okay? I'm one of those people that I'm not going to sit here and talk to you about things that I know nothing about. I think that's setting you up for failure, and I am not going to set you up for failure, okay? there is a very important responsibility in this. Anybody can get out there and just run their mouth off about subjects that they don't have a clue about, but it puts you, the listener, in a dangerous position. Because if they don't know the reality of it, if they don't know how to do it themselves, they don't know what to tell you to look for. Half these channels out there, if they were just to have a discussion with you about learning electronics, how many of them would have been able to go through the things just what I did in just that short amount of time? Not many, because they're not actually experienced in it. They just run their mouth. You won't find that here. But back to my comment about the channels that do discuss firearms and stuff like that. They will tell you, without a doubt, you have to get out to the range. You have to get out there and you have to use that thing. It's not just about owning it. It's about becoming proficient with it. Well, folks, when it comes to mechanical repairs, electrical, electronic repairs, it's the same thing. You know, I could stand brushing up myself when it comes to the electronics. I used to be able to tell you what every color of the bands on a resistor, what the value was. I used to know it off the top of my head. I couldn't tell you that anymore. It's been too long. I'm not proficient with it anymore because I haven't practiced it. Oh, I've got handy little apps on my phone and all of that will tell me. Believe me. And I do have it in we'll call it manual form, in paper form as well. Okay, so I'm not completely reliant on my electronic gadgets. But, again, you know, even if I can't sit here and tell you which colors represent what anymore, I still have the basic understanding of what those colors are about. It's going to tell you the value of that resistor. Okay? I can tell you that the very last band on a resistor is going to be the tolerance, and if it's silver, it's a 10% tolerance, and if it's gold, it's a 5% tolerance. I remember that. But as far as the other bands, it's escaping my memory at this time. But, you know, important to know this stuff. Important to know this stuff. Again, there's a big responsibility in the prepping channels. And that responsibility is not to lead you down the wrong path. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. I honest to God could not sleep at night knowing that I led somebody down the wrong path when it came to prepping, and that the things that came out of my mouth cost somebody their own life or the life of a loved one, all because I was worried about getting views. Folks, it's not about that. It's not about that. You know, the prepping channels that aren't in this to truly help people, to truly educate and inform people, it's shameful. It's shameful. All they worry about is views and how much they get from Google. Insane. Insane. There's a hell of a lot that I don't know, but I will always be upfront with you about those things. Always. I won't sit here and try to BS you through it. So, what makes somebody a prepper? Not food. Not the cool guns. It's not their tactical plate carrier. Their knowledge. Their knowledge. And their understanding of how things work. And, probably most importantly, their ability to adapt and overcome. Because it doesn't matter if you've got all the cool tools and all the cool gear and all the cool tools to repair that gear. What happens when your cool tools break? What happens when you lose your cool tools? It's going to happen. So you have to learn to improvise, adapt, and overcome. It takes time. It takes time to learn these skills. And believe me, you don't learn them overnight. Funny thing, my dad, it was always important that he teach us kids how to use our hands, how to work with our hands, how to work with tools. And let me have a sip of coffee. And I'm sure I've probably talked about this before, but not often. I used to get so mad at Dad because he taught us how to change your own tires. And when I say that, I don't mean get out the lug wrench, pull the tire off the car, go get the spare out of the trunk and put it on the car. No, I'm talking about take the tire off the rim, put a new tire on the rim, and pop that tire out, and then put it on the car. So it used to be so frustrating to me because you know what? As in my younger days, I was like 125, 130 pounds sopping wet, right? And I've never been an ox. Okay? It's just not in my makeup. And so Dad would go out there, and when he would change a tire, he would sit there and use his, well, you should probably use tire irons specially made for it, but in our case, screwdrivers. And we'd pull the bead around one side of the rim, okay? And then he would take a crowbar, and he would stick it down in the bead on the other side of the rim, and then he would kind of collapse the tire somewhat inside out and take a sledgehammer and beat the bead right near the edge of the rim. Dad could do it, and within about 2-3 hits, that rim went flying out, that tire went flying the opposite direction, and he was ready to put the next tire on that rim. Me, on the other hand, I would sit there and beat myself to death like a fool and still not get it. All the while Dad's sitting in his lawn chair with a big old smile on his face. And you know that man would not get up and help me unless I literally couldn't pick up that sledgehammer anymore. That's when he would finally get up and help me. I thank him for that. I do. I thank him for that. I learned eventually why that tire, and he had told me, but I learned eventually why that tire was so hard to get off that rim. 2 things. For one, I didn't have enough pressure on the crowbar pulling down on the tire. For one. For two, I had to quit being a pansy and learn how to use the damn hammer. Right? Instead of choking up on it right by the hammerhead and beating my brains out with it, I needed to pull my hand back down on the handle a little bit and get a swing with it. Right? And with COPD, it kind of throws a wrench in things today. But at one time, I got to the point to where I was like he could do. Within a couple of whacks, that rim went flying one way, the tire went flying the other. I can remember going to college for auto mechanics. True story. I raced a guy, a very experienced guy, on changing tires. He was on the machine. I was doing it by hand. I raced him and was standing there smoking a cigarette waiting for him to finish up. No kidding. You know, it's important to know how to do these skills. In fact, that's another skill right there that's important. How to change a tire. And again, I don't mean how to get out the lug wrench and take the rim off the car and put the spare tire on it. No, I'm talking about how to take a tubeless tire off a rim, how to mount a new tire on that rim, and get it to pop out and seal. Very, very important skill. How to patch a tube. How to plug a tire, a tubeless tire, right? All of these are immensely important skills. Immensely. And if you don't understand these skills, are you a prepper? Are you just slowly prolonging your death? I mean, that's all we all are doing anyway, because, old age happens and we're eventually going to die, even if it's naturally. I get that. But isn't the whole goal is to make it to that point where we die naturally versus dying from starvation or dying because we lack this or that or the other thing, or we freeze to death or whatever the case may be? Well, in order to reach that goal, damn well better know how to repair things. Damn well better know how to use tools. So it's an important question that each and every one of us ask ourselves. What really makes someone a prepper? Is it owning all the cool things? Or is it what they know? So anyway, I thought that was an important topic to talk about. Let me run through the news headlines, and then we will go from there. Let's see here. I thought I actually got a kick out of this first headline here. I'm like, way to go. Let me have a sip of coffee because it's like in the contract. Okay, Mormon Church hiding $100 billion from the IRS as contingency plan for end of days, a whistleblower claims. Well, good for them. Good for them. By the way, aren't they tax exempt anyway? Okay. Intensified drills at Russia's doorstep indicate NATO is gearing up for a major conflict, says Russia's top general. Federal surveillance judge orders FBI to answer for misleading courts and omitting key evidence in effort to spy on Trump campaign. Mind your business, mixed reaction in India after 19 American universities condemn police amid Citizenship Act protests. China withdraws request for UNSC meeting over Kashmir after France says it's a bilateral issue, says a report. Russia's new fifth-generation supersonic stealth Su-57 fighter jets ace all objectives in Syria trials, says Chief of Staff. That's a pretty awesome bird, I must say. I'm often impressed with Russia's planes. I really am. I like a lot of the French planes. I just do. I like planes. It doesn't matter what country produces them. If they make a badass plane, then hey, it's a badass plane. U.S. sanctions won't stop completion of Russian natural gas pipeline to Europe, says the Kremlin. Hungary lost $8.5 billion due to the EU sanctions against Russia, says the foreign minister. That's what the man says. Kremlin backs top general's assessment that NATO is drilling for large-scale war. Macron will not abandon pension reforms, but may improve retirement age, says Elisi. If I said that right. Don't know. Russia's crude oil output could surpass 12 million BPD by 2035. Tractors clog Dutch streets as farmers and builders protest over government's nitrogen policy. Folks, we have just like non-stop protests across the world on so many various topics. It's unreal. Germany won't back down under threat of U.S. sanctions over Nord Stream 2 pipeline with Russia, says Merkel. Let's see. I shared this from Reuters so it didn't get the whole headline here. Special report, FDA targets e-cigs that hook teens but don't help smokers quit. Namely, like Juul. But the problem is what's in that person's hand is not a jewel. That's pretty much essentially what I use, something very similar to that. Facing U.S. sanctions, Huawei plans to build components plant in Europe. We're winning, right? We're winning? Yeah, we're winning. Absolutely disgusting. Parents furious after kids asked, should all terrorists be forgiven in Manchester bombing essay? Worse than during World War II, Jewish cemetery destroyed in Slovakia with almost 60 graves vandalized. Donald Trump says all U.S. administrations, quote-unquote, abused power hours before his House impeachment vote. Severe Japan-South Korea ties could return to a healthy state if Seoul keeps its promises, says Tokyo. Trump could pardon him now. Manafort mortgage fraud case tossed by New York judge over double jeopardy. And the biggest reason why I shared that headline is, you see, the law protects these people, right? It protects these people, but you take folks like the Hammonds, oh no, that's not double jeopardy. That's not double jeopardy. It's ridiculous. Our beautiful flag and republic. She makes me so sick. Pelosi panders patriotically in impeachment debate kickoff, triggering Republicans' rage. Well, I'm not a Republican, but I really wished she would stop trying to prop up the Constitution at the same time that she's pissing all over it. It's so frustrating. So frustrating. Snowden has to hand book profits over to U.S. government, a judge rules. Mass stabbing in Oregon shopping center, police detain suspect. And the last I knew, I think one person died, multiple injured, but that was the last I knew. Clashes with police after Barcelona versus Real Madrid game as tens of thousands protest for Catalan independence. Massive police response at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort over intruder report. And lastly here, former Jefferson County deputy charged with child molestation. Go Blue Line, right? This was in Jefferson County, Missouri, not Illinois. So, let's see. Okay, that looks like the headline. So let me go ahead and wrap up the monologue. For those here for the live show, we'll be live until 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. For those here for the monologue, or if you're watching the recording later on, thank you very much. As always, God bless you, we love you, and be one with your spirit.